Yeah, we can. Good tips.
Just one or two.
This one.
Have a pen?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Just so that Jason is here in spirit, I'm going to say this. What's your mic count? Okay. Just so that he's here in spirit is why I said that. Welcome. I know there's some new folks down there in the back to the Western Colorado Beekeepers Association. We're going to have a presentation today by Tyler Tobias, and we're also going to have a presentation from the lady who's running the Colorado Honeybee Festival, previously the Palisade Bee Festival. And then I'm going to go over fooding a little bit. So we got kind of a full schedule here. But I'm going to start out first with the officer's report. So I'll start off with myself because Jason's not here. And all I have to say is about what I say every month about the Delta Beekeepers. It's on the 16th, this coming Monday, but it's always been the Oddfellows Hall on Route 92 in Delta, and it's going to be at Bill Heddle's Recreation Center. I gave it up last month, and another lady's running it, Robin Kaufman, and she moved it there. So if you're interested in going to that, you can just go to Facebook. First, all the information is there, the meetings and everything. It's not a state-sanctioned club like this. You can just come. There's no dues, and you can join. That's the only thing I have. Treasurer?
Well, the balance in our account, the last statement is $3,843.58. And then we've got our PayPal balance of $1,590. It's gone up with our memberships being paid by PayPal. We've got Brenda over here as our secretary.
One more thing about that. Oh, maybe the secretary can go. We're getting over application.
Yeah,
Okay,
I was going to talk about that. So, not to forget that if you need to fill out an application, please do so now because I think it's after this meeting, we send it into the State Beekeepers Association. So, you ought by doing your membership now, I can say it. Membership now, you get to belong to the State Beekeepers Association. So you'll get stuff from them. Also on the minutes, just so when I send them out, we have new signups for the Swarm Line. We have signups for the shared member directory if you want to be other members to see your information. We have the 2026 bee vendors. So if you have something to sell, is it sell? Doug?
Yeah, so there's bees and then there's hive products.
Bees,
So-
and then the next one is hive products.
So yeah, so the bees is strictly if you're selling bees. The hive products is anything else in your hive. Honey, wax, candles, as long as it's beehive related, it goes into that one.
And if you're looking for an apiary, there's a sign up for that. Cutouts, if you can do a cutout and you're licensed, or I think that's bonded or whatever, where you cut it out of somebody's house, if you really know what you're doing, you can sign up there. Also, bumblebee removal. So there's all kinds of new signups. The oxalic acid one, the vaporizer checkout, you want to handle that?
So Gene has been doing that, so I think I'm gonna talk to Gene about it after the meeting, we'll figure out how we make a sign up and then we get it directly to him, so he can work out the details with getting to people.
Okay.
So that one needs to be removed.
We'll get during the meeting and have a cheater vaporizing. You can give your name and your address. I support it, but I wanna have to, have somebody. One person further represents a day, and then 3 people in Palisade and 1 on North Mason. It's a lot of running around for me to do, so if I. Coordinate the time, you know. Me, the, then the answer to action Monday, might do it then.
Okay,
If I got a number, if I have to go, be going out there, I go out that way. And once a week. You other things. If I got your name and your number, and you need it done, let me know, and then coordinate.
so we'll try to figure out a way to do a sign up online and get it to Jean also.
And all those links will be with the minutes.
Okay, just the oxalic acid vaporizer checkout, that's not valid anymore. I'm gonna remove it this time. So, and something will replace it.
Yeah, there will be a new one, so. Since, are you done with everything there?
I think so.
Okay, so to replace that, we are gonna go ahead and start up the Q and A again. I've been starting to get enough phone calls and questions. So those are the 4th Wednesday of every month, 6:30. It's a fully Zoom meeting, so if we don't show up, it's just all online. I emailed the link, so that'll be in there. All you do is just set that up and then show up, and this one's open to everybody, not just the club. And I'm going to actually, I've been talking to some leaders from the Front Range. I'm trying to push it to say, hey, let's get some voices from the other side of the mountain. Last year, there was a couple of meetings that we had people from Trinidad and Sterling, and just to hear their challenges that they have that are different than what we have, I think made a lot of things. So I want to try to make that big. So it's open to anybody. They don't have to be a member. So as long as they're interested in bees, we have been trolled a couple of times. We had a guy show up in a dinosaur costume, playing loud music. I had to keep kicking him out. But other than that, it was kind of interesting. But other than that, but yeah, it's the 4th Wednesday. So the regular meetings are the 2nd Wednesday. These are the 4th Wednesday. That way, if you in there and you're like, oh man, after you leave this meeting tonight, you go, oh man, I meant to ask this. This gives you a way to get it in case you don't want to wait for the next meeting. So that also, if you guys ever do have any questions, shoot an email to the club. One of us board members will be on it, and we can jump on it and get you an answer, or we'll see if we can find a way. If we don't have the answer, we'll see if we can find a way to get it. So, what else do I have? Oh, who's planning on going to the CBSA summer college in Rifle? So they are looking for volunteers, basically to help set up and I think serve some food. If you volunteer, you get free admission. So they need like 4 to 6 people. Right at the moment, I've got 1. So
You did it last year.
Yeah, if you're done.
Yeah.
You're done? Okay. Yeah, basically, it's with helping the meet and greet Friday night, setting up chairs, setting up tables, putting food out. It's catered. You don't have to serve food, but you put it out on the table and everybody get what they want. And then clean up afterwards. And then the same way for the lunch on Saturday. In between classes, you make sure all of the tables are set up. Like we had box lunches, we were giving out box lunches. We had to set them all out because there was a bunch of them. It's not a lot of hard work, and it's an easy way to get a free entrance if you'd like. I would recommend it. It was really fun last year.
So it
Very much so. We had Jamie, what's his last name?
Ellis.
From Florida, and he's now going to be with the University of Georgia. I understand, but he's a super good speaker. I don't even know who the speakers are this year, but
It still says, last I it said the agenda and speakers are still to be determined. So,
okay, well, got the officers out of the way. First, I'm going to introduce Michelle. She is the lady who's going to run the Colorado Honeybee Festival, which used to be the Palisade Bee Festival. And hopefully this is the only year we'll have to say that, and it'll be moved by its own. So she's going to go over, because us as a club, we generally help with that. We have a table there for bee education, but we also just help out wherever's needed just to try to help the festival. So there's a lot of changes this year, new place, new people, all kinds of stuff. So I'll let her have that.
Yeah, well, we love partnering with you guys. We really appreciate everything you do for us. So we used to be the Palisade International Honeybee Festival. That's still our registered name, but we're doing business as the Colorado Honeybee Festival now. And we're moving to Cross Orchards Historic Site, which is down on Patterson, close to 31 Road, which we thought was just an ideal partnership. They have a very similar mission to us to support agriculture, and we are an organization that just tries to educate the general public about the importance of honeybees and pollinators to our food supply. We're just reaching out, like I said, to the general public. So you guys have the specific knowledge of keeping bees, but we're trying to let people know why that's so important and what they can do to help. So we moved to get a little bigger area also to have our festival and to reach a broader audience. And we've been advertising all around Colorado to interest people in the topic and maybe come to our festival. We feel like having a fun place to see a lot of things is a great way to educate people on what's going on with pollinators. So we're going to be doing our festival on April 11th, which is a Saturday, from 10 to 4 at Cross Orchards. And we currently have about 110 vendors, so there'll be a lot of different people there. There'll be, not that many people selling honey compared to the amount of vendors that we'll have, but we'll probably have 10 honey vendors, maybe a little bit more than that. And then we'll have a lot of people who are selling honey-related products, or, a lot of craft vendors. We'll have food vendors. We'll have music most of the day. We'll have a spelling bee, which we've done. This is our 18th year that we've been doing this. So we've done that from the beginning. So one of the advantages of being at Cross Orchards is that they have all sorts of historic buildings. They were a orchard that was formed back in, I think, the late 1800s. This is just a little, they now have just a little bit of that orchard left, but they have all the historic buildings, a house that the orchard keepers used to have, in the bunkhouse and the barn and the silo and all the animal buildings, and all of those things will be open for people to see, as well as all the vendors that we have. So in their barn, we will have our keynote speaker, and that will be at noon. And it's Dr. John Mola from Colorado State University. He specializes in pollinators. He's a professor of ecology. But he runs the Mola Lab, which is a research lab specifically about pollinators and, how well they're faring. And he's mostly looking at native pollinators, specifically bumblebees. But he also does have his hands in honeybee research as well. So we're really excited about having him. It might be a really interesting talk for you guys to hear. He's going to talk about bees of the world and how you can help them. So kind of a general talk, but it should be great. He'll talk for about a half an hour and then have 15 minutes for questions. And then we'll have Cooking with Honey with Dixie Burmeister and Chad from Wine Country Inn, and that's always a lot of fun, and she'll have a lot of samples. And this year we are very lucky to be sponsored by Safeway, which we feel like they're our name sponsor. So it's Colorado Honeybee Festival sponsored by Safeway. And we feel like they're just an ideal place to sponsor us, since they're such a food, grocery store type business. So they're definitely related with the whole pollinator issue. And then after that, we will have a talk by Dan Bean, who is the director and one of our board members of the Palisade Insectary, and he'll talk about the good bugs. And that's what they do, is they focus on good bugs, eradicating bad bugs for farmers and orchard keepers, people like that. And so he always brings the actual bugs with him and kind of passes, the container around with the bugs in it. So that's always great for kids. And they'll have a booth there, which is going to be great. And then we will have our spelling bee in the barn. All of this will be going on in the barn. And we'll have music in the gazebo, which is kind of next to the historic buildings. And then we'll end our festival with the costume contest for both kids and dogs or animals. Dressed up like honeybees, which is always a lot of fun too. We'll have probably 10 or so food trucks out there. It's going to be a lot of fun. And so I really hope that you guys can come. Maybe you'd be interested in helping run the booth for your nonprofit that brings the working hive, which we love, and really helps with our educational aspect. And we'll also have a life-size beehive created by artist Lyle Nichols years ago, and he's revamping it. So we'll have that in the festival as well, where kids can go inside and they'll be able to listen to stories and do little puppet shows and stuff like that. So that'll be really cool too. And we'll have they have a little train that they take around the whole place. We're paying for that so everyone can ride it all day long. So it'll be great.
Isn't there a petting zoo?
Well, they will have sheep there.
Sheep.
So I think that you'll be able to pet them if you can get them to come up
To
to
come
the
up
fence
here?
or so.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And the guy who keeps the sheep should be there educating people about different things you can do with the wool and a whole bunch of different things he's working on grazing.
And you said you had 110 vendors this year.
Yes.
What were your cap last year? Was it 60 or 80?
No, last year we had about 103. So
Okay.
it's close to what we had at Palisade. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it'll be really similar. We're trying to let people know that we've changed location, and that's probably our biggest goal and our hardest thing. So, yeah. Parking, there's gonna be about 300 spots there at Cross Orchards. And then we have also rented Grand Mesa Middle School, which is right off of 31.5 Road, really close to Cross Orchards. And we are using the parking lot of the Methodist Church, which is off of 30 Road off of Patterson. So we've got both areas of parking available as backup parking, and we're going to be busing people from there. And we have also Grand River Vineyards is going to be a parking area for people in Palisade. So we'll also be making trip to Palisade to bring people from there who want to come to the festival and just park there. So that's how we're hoping to handle parking issues. Yes. Yes, so they're going to be doing blacksmithing demonstrations. That's another advantage of being at Cross Orchards. And they're going to be doing woodworking demonstrations. And then they'll have all of the historic buildings open. So that'll be awesome. Yeah. Yes, and doing those demos. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Where are they gonna give a t-shirt like that?
Oh, we're gonna have them for sale. So we just got these made. Yeah, so we'll have them for sale there. $20. Yep. Question back here. April 11th. So it's a Saturday. And yeah, coming up about a month away.
No problem. But
Yes, keep your fingers crossed. We're really hoping for good weather. And we have a new website. It's coloradohoneybee.org. And on there, we have an educational page that you can go to that I'm hoping to get that pulled out. I think it's part of one of our other pages right now. But anyway, if anyone here is interested in writing an article for that, we're always open to educational articles about honeybees and honeybee issues or pollinators. And you can contact me. Let's see. Well, there's a phone number listed on the website that's just for the Colorado Honeybee Festival. That'll go straight through to me. I can give you that number if you're interested. I don't have it by heart yet. Or you can also email me at info@coloradohoneybee.org. So the number is 970-462-7236. And that goes straight through to me, so I'm happy to talk to any of you about any of this. And we are a 501c3. So we try to spend, whatever we make and either reinvest it in next year's festival, or we're interested in, purchasing books to educate children about honeybees. Or some of the things we've talked about is maybe investing in research at a later point, in maybe with Dr. John Mueller or somebody like that. But it'd be nice to do something locally too. And so we're just starting communications with CMU, see if anyone's interested in that type of research.
Your name again?
My name is Michelle Gossage. I'm the coordinator. Yeah.
So what is the difference about?
Oh, it's free. I meant to. Yeah, thank you for asking that. That was one thing that was super important to us, was to keep this event free so that anyone who wanted to could come to it. So that's very important to us. And one of the reasons that we didn't want to keep paying higher and higher fees to be a Palisade, honestly. So
And attendance numbers will be.
so last year and the year before, we figured it was between 5,000 and 8,000 people. We reach a lot of people with this festival. So it does seem to make an impact, which we're very happy about. And usually people come and they'll stay for an hour or two, and then they'll, it's kind of like a farmer's market. And so we get just crowds of people that come through all day long, which is really nice. Yeah.
Which I just wanted to say,
Yeah.
so we have our booth there that's from the club, and that allows us, any member here, to sell any product at that booth, like to sign up for hours that you want to be there and do it. That even though they have 10 vendors that are doing other things, products out there, we're really well supported by our local community, and they come and they really will buy out. They will buy just about everything they have, and so it's last year and really kind of have your product be out there and just spend some time on it.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And gee, you just made me think of two different things. No, that's okay. I appreciate you bringing that up. The first thing is that G and her partner set up hives at Cross Orchards, and they hadn't had hives for a number of years. So it's a perfect place to have hives since they've got the big orchard and all the flowers. And they've got a hive now in the back area and are planning to add a couple more. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to be
Learning process. Right, so that'll also be going on at the festival, which is great. And one more thing is that last year, the 4-H has a bee club, and they came and ran their own booth, and they also bring a observational hive, and it's just great. They probably have 8 kids that have started their own hives and are maintaining them, and we helped judge that, well, with one of your members, helped judge the bee club at the Mesa County Fair last year. So that was great, getting young people involved. Okay, anything else?
Can I get your phone number?
Yes.
Gonna make her look it up again.
I have it up, I
Cell
think.
number is.
Do you have it?
162.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I have some posters. So,
Right, extension.
oh, good. Yeah. If you guys want more, I have more of these. So, yeah. Yeah, if you want to put these up anywhere, we're excited to get the word out, let people know about it. Also Eureka, I don't know if you've heard this, but Eureka, the kids museum at CMU is doing an insect week the week before. So we will be there. They're going to do a bee discussion, I think on the 8th. and they're gonna do, a whole presentation with vendors on the sixth, so we will be there and you guys might find that interesting, yeah. Oh, they didn't even move with that, I think it lost it.
Something wrong.
Yeah, we said,
Oh, you have tried to set something up, but your group has?
yeah, we've tried the
That's.
past.
I wondered if anyone had tried to set up a working hive with them. I think they'd be very interested in that. But you've had troubles getting the bees to come in?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I wondered about that. I thought that would be a really nice thing to add to the museum.
The way they had it set up, there was just they had the entrance coming out the top and it was I think it was just too much for them to go up. They couldn't keep the hive clean, because the body died and that thing was so tall. They couldn't lift all the way out and try to clean up things. So the debris and disease and stuff just got overwhelming. So we had worked with them a couple of different times, a couple of different directors, and then it just kind of stopped. So I think,
I have the contact there if you're interested in trying again.
I don't even know who has the actual, it's a big or hexagonal shaped observation hive kind of thing. Well, I think somebody from a club might have it because we had to use a top bar to actually start it. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So it's 970-424-7397.
Thanks for the time to talk to you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, next we have a presentation from one of our club members here, Tyler Tobias. He does a lot of work with our veterans group that meets on the Monday before our meeting here. If any of you folks are veteran and would feel comfortable in that setting, it's a lot smaller. It's usually about 10 people or so, 8, 10 people.
Not about 2 dozen members, not everyone shows up.
Yeah, so you got 8, 10 per meeting. Seems
On the
like
average, probably about a dozen.
doesn't. Okay. I go whenever I can.
I was just gonna mention that the VA always comes to the Honeybee Festival, so that would be another area you might get some interest in.
It's funny that you say that because I talked to somebody there and then went to the VA and got all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
got accepted. So anyway, thank you very much. And Tyler, he's been a beekeeper for how long? 13, 14? Not quite close to. Seemed like that, yeah. And he just recently got his master beekeepers. And he's gonna give us a presentation with a projector here. So without further ado, Tyler.
So really, I appreciate the club letting us do this here, but the presentation is kind of there's some very basic, but I also know from the last couple of meetings, we had some very brand new beekeepers in here. You're gonna get some of that there. It's kind of a little bit of a refresher for some of the seasonal ones as well. So you'll see hopefully some new topics on here a little bit, but starting off, obviously, 101 type stuff. We have 3 casts of bees, right? Of honeybees. Those are going to be the queen, the worker, and the drone, right? And so in this picture here, we have all 3 casts. You're going to see frames like this. So I don't know if you guys can see those from way in the back. Try to adjust the photos so they're bigger, but anyway, so you got the queen right over here. You got a drone there, you got a drone there, a couple other drones, and the rest are gonna be end up worker bees. So that's pretty common that you're gonna see, especially during the peak of the season, a full frame like that. And the queen, what do we know about the queen? Well, there's gonna be 1 per hive. Rare occasion, you are gonna see a second queen in there. Again, it's rare. And if so, it's gonna be typically, that's the daughter queen. And they're getting ready to kill the mother queen. So that'll be a short time, and then the daughter will end up taking them. The female or the queen, she's the only female that is able to have a full reproduction system. So the others, they're late workers. And they're basically just laying mutants, I mean, they're not fertile. So she's the only one that can do that. She's gonna lay, the science is different, they're back and forth around there, but on the average, right around 2,000 eggs per day. So that's a lot of eggs in there. Her lifespan is gonna be typically 2 to 5 years, so. Are you gonna keep your queen that long? Probably not. You can, but what's probably gonna end up happening is the colony, if it's strong enough, will supersede her, as she starts to fail. And then, they'll raise their own queen on their own. So most beekeepers are gonna end up requeening their hive. On most backyard beekeepers, probably about every other year. And, some are starting to do it more every year. So I try to requeen every year. On a commercial level, what Jason does, he does, requeen every year. And that's just because he's getting more brood cycles when he goes back to California. So you're wearing out that queen faster, by doing that. Yes, ask questions as we're going. Per day. So you have roughly, I think it's 2,500 frame or cells per side. You're running about 5,000 cells per frame.
2.5 days.
Right, yep. Now, she's not gonna work just one frame for that day. Those 2,000 eggs are gonna be scattered throughout. I mean, does that make sense? Again, please ask questions as we're going. Question there. So the worker, what do we know about the workers? They're gonna be approximately 80 to 90% of your colony. So that's the vast majority of what's inside that colony at any given time, no matter if they're 5,000 bees strong or 60,000 bees strong. And that's typically what they're gonna be at. Again, they're gonna be more of a sterile female. We talk about those things that if there's no queen, you're queenless, not queen right. There could be generated a laid workers, but she will lay multiple eggs in a cell, won't be one egg. And all those are gonna end up being drones, but those drones will not be able to produce because they don't have a full reproductive system. So basically, it's just like I say, a mutated bee, you know what I mean? And it's hacked, it'll really destroy your pollen. So again, depending on their age of those workers, they're gonna have different tasks throughout their life. We'll go over that here in a little bit. But typically here, starting now already, actually this year is a crazy year. So when this slide is built, when I made the slide, this is built on your average Grand Valley year. This year's been totally off. It's been unseasonably warm. And so we're a little ahead of the game on some of this stuff. So keep that in mind. But anyway, so right now, your bees, this hatch, this first hatch, you're probably actually in your second or maybe third hatch right now. Those already are going to start living the 6-week life. The other ones were the ones coming out of winter that were, a few months old, and those are going to already perish. So, so given the right conditions, again, in the winter, through the right weather, right temperature, enough food, they can live up to approximately 5 months. Here in the valley, we're not going to have a 5-month winter. But when further north you go, in those states and up into Canada, it's very common. So it can be done. Drones, they're the male bees, have no stinger. They're the ones that cannot sting you. They're going to again be approximately 10 to 15% of the colony. And that's not going to be right at the beginning of the spring. So your hives right now are not at that number. That's because they're going to have to produce those drones. But once they get up to the string, they will maintain that 10 to 15% through the rest of the year until fall, when they basically pick out the drones and they perish. So again, their only purpose is to mate. That's the only reason of the male bee. Otherwise, we're just a bunch of slugs hanging out, right? So the lifespan, 2 weeks, approximately 2 months. Can anyone tell me why they only live 2 weeks?
They mate, they die.
Exactly, okay? So what's gonna happen here, from the time they hatch, it's gonna take a few more days for their reproductive system to finish developing their muscles, their wings. They're gonna get a couple orientation flights, and boom, they're off to try and find this drone congregation area. Upon mating, instantly, they're gonna die. Okay, so that's just the way it is. And it's designed that way. So typically, like right now, well, once they get going here, it's only gonna be 2 weeks. The 2 months, you're gonna see that more towards the end of the season, as they go in the fall, because there's less mating going on. So they're just hanging out until the girls say, sorry, we're saving, or we're saving our food for the winter, and we're gonna kick them all out. That's when they'll end up dying. Okay, so that's why you get the 2 weeks to 2 months. So, okay. So again, come fall, so typically around November, you're gonna see all the drones, any that are left, are gonna be forced out of the hive and survive on their own. The guard bees will go in force and not let them back in, and they're all gonna perish. Yeah.
I have an interesting tidbit about the drones. They, I'm sure you know this, but when they mate and their male parts stay in the queen, they die and they fall off. So the other 100 drones that are following it have to remove the other drone's male part before they can mate.
Actually, so as she's in flight, so you're right about basically, for lack of a better word, the penis is pulled off, okay? Upon ejaculation, that forces that, okay? As she's flying, the rest of the sperm is feeding into what she has, a spermatheca, and that's a sac that's getting filled with sperm, okay? Once that's all done, she more or less ejects that, the next drone will come in and make it.
So,
Yeah.
and that makes sense, but what I was.
It's kind of like a plug until the rest of that, all
the
that
other
sperm
bees had
comes out.
the other drones that they got there too soon. Had to pull it down.
Correct.
But
Yep, and that's exactly how that works. Yep. And so she will mate with roughly 8 to 12 drones. She may do that on a full flight, sometimes it's 2 flights, maybe a 3rd flight. All that depends on weather, especially early spring with the rain and what have you. But once she's done with about 8 to 12 drones, and she fills her sac, her spermatheca is filled, she's done. That's the only time she will mate. But what happens as she lays all those 2,000 eggs a day through spring through fall, over the years, basically she runs out of sperm. She dries up. Okay, and then that's when the colony starts to fail. The bees recognize that, they'll kill her, they'll supersede her, and then they'll make a new queen. All right. A little bit, maybe more than what you want, but good question. Yep. All right. Kind of some basics again here. Oh, maybe with the slides, it's got all goofy here. All right. So basically what this slide is saying here, every cast, doesn't really matter, you're gonna have an egg. An egg will be no more than 3 days. Okay? So there is the queen, whisper or drone, eggs are only gonna be up to 3 days old. So on day 4, on all 3 casts, from 4 to 9, the egg now turns into larvae, which is your white worm. Okay, so the egg that's kind of almost standing straight up like a grain of rice will slowly start to fall, and then on between day 3 and day 4, completely falls in the bottom of that cell, kind of circles, kind of like a seed, and then becomes the larvae. It will continue to be fed with oil gel and different pollen, depending on what the bees think needs to be fed. So If they know they want to raise a queen, they're gonna feed that a little bit differently versus your worker or drone. So that's what's happening between day 4 and 9. And then after day 9 is when everything is capped. At that point, that's when it comes a pupa, and it's going to continue to grow until whatever caste it was fed to become. So a queen, she's going to hatch at day 16. The worker's going to hatch out at day 21, and the drones will go 3 more days to day 24. So why is that important as beekeepers? Idea. When we are working our frames, it's good to know, first of all, we say, especially at the peak of the summer, it's hard to find that queen, right? We're looking for eggs. We know if we see eggs, we've had a queen in there at least 3 days or less. Okay, so that's the ideal way to be inspecting your hives, is looking for the eggs. If only you're seeing larvae, you know she's been in there 9 days or less, right? And then anything capped, you kind of know, okay, I'm at 10 or older, and then I'm going to show you a frame. You will know what type of capping you have, so you're going to know what my hatch is coming out. In X number of days, I'm expecting a very large hatch or whatever. So the important numbers to know: 3, 9, 21, 3, 9, 16, 21, and 24. If you can help remember those things, you'll make better decisions as a beekeeper as you're working your hive on these inspections. The more you get to understand the bees, the better decisions you can make, as you're anticipating what is happening now and what's about to happen within a week, to 2 weeks, to 3 weeks. Okay. So again, there's a picture of your eggs. Those are going to be yellow, 3 days or less, right? And then here's a picture of your larvae. So again, like this one here, you can see the white milk. That's your royal gel. That one's just pretty small. You may not see in the back. And again, I try to make these big for you, but that's a much smaller one. So that's probably, only a couple of days old versus these other ones that are a little bit more plump. They're getting bigger and you just about finished filling out the cell, right? So this frame here, you're going to see all 3 casts that are being capped. This smoother cappings right here, there's more consistent. So basically, if you were rubbing your fingers across that, there's no bumps, it's more smooth. That's capped out. Those are going to be your workers. Then you got what's pretty typical down here at the bottom. You have your bumpier cells. Those are drones. You're also seeing some up here in these corners a little bit. I can tell you I believe what happened, why you're seeing the drones up there. This is normal. You'll see this occasionally. All right. But then you're also seeing these little peanuts right here. And those are your queen cells. So when you're seeing that, you got some decisions to make real quick. What you're going to do with that particular frame, right? The other thing you can see on here, so here's brood, but up here, that's much darker. That's honey. In these 2 corners yet. So what was happening here was it was more of a honey frame. They had the traditional arc that we look at, or the rainbow we refer to. They started backfilling all this here in and with brood, and then they had the caps. The drone caps. But they needed more drones. So what happened was these became available, and bam, they made those drones. Right? That's what happens. So that is normal to see once in a while. What you don't want to see is this whole frame filled with this random bumpiness. Because if you're seeing that, it's not drones, it's a lay worker. You're a queen list, no longer queen right. So those are the things you're looking for right in there. What's happening in these cells here? Anyone? Can't quite see it in here.
It looks like there's some eggs in there.
Gonna be laying. We really zoomed in there and there's probably tons of eggs already going. Any questions about that, Frank? So again, talk about what's going on, with different ages of the worker. So day 1 to 2, you know, they just hatch, and if you ever watch one emerge, and if you're on a warm day, not right now, but like in the summer, and just hold that frame for a while, you know the brood's not gonna really dry out or cool off, so it's gonna be fine. But it's interesting to watch that fresh hatch worker, what she's going to do. And within about 30 minutes, she's already starting to do something. And they cleaned her and she's starting to clean cells. It was immediately start seeing her start working the cells. So she knows what she's got to do. So that's her first job there, is just kind of clean cells, kind of move around the brood, help keep the brood warm. 3 to 5 days later, or day 3 to 5 rather, she is now feeding older larvae and helping attend to the queens, taking care of the needs that she needs, feed, food, stuff like that. Now we got day 6 to 11, and she's feeding the younger larvae, but she's also starting to help cap cells. Why is she capping cells there and not, besides the fact that these are the older larvae? You think she's feeding them, she would help cap them. She's capping later on. Any idea? As for
Wax glands.
wax glands, okay? The wax glands have not finished developing yet until roughly in that time frame. So now she's able to help start capping. And since she's capping, what is she going to start doing now? The next, 12 to 17, she's going to help build her comb, going to help start repairing everything. So when you accidentally tear a hive, and your comb is all jacked up or whatnot, they'll fix that. Do all that stuff. He's also running up and down constantly. She's meeting the foragers. As the foragers come in, they transfer food, whether that be pollen or nectar, and then she's running it where it needs to go. Maybe it's stored somewhere in the brood chamber. Maybe it's up in the honey supers, wherever that needs to be. Maybe it's feeding the queen. Maybe it's help feeding the larvae. But she's running back and forth. While she's doing that, that's help circulating the air naturally. Okay, and by doing that, they're also regulating the temperature. So all that movement is pretty fascinating. The bees don't just randomly move. When we see a frame, that's what we're doing. But if you ever get a chance to see the colony with the inside camera, so you got the 2 boxes, that bee literally is running like this all the way up and down, back and forth, and then she'll go to the next range. So it's not just a random motion on a frame as we're inspecting. So it's pretty interesting to see how they're doing. Day 18 to 21, well, I prefer that these are the teenage years, Hey, we love them, but there's a certain period of time we just really can't stand them. And that's the guard bees, because those are the ones that are chasing you off, they're trying to sting you right away. You open it up, they come get you or whatever. Those nasty ones that you're swearing at, those are the guard bees. So those are the ages between 18 and 21. From 22 on, so basically all this is half their life. The second half, foragers. So anytime you see bees foraging, they're at the end of their life. That's they're running till they're done. And that's the beauty of the bee, is that they're always looking for survival of the hive. They're not for greed for themselves. It's always about the survival of that colony. So they literally run themselves to death. When they're at the end of their life, they will know that. They will eat everything they can, fly out of the hive and die out of the hive, because they know that if they die in the hive, some other worker bee is going to have to drag them out and waste precious resources of the energy of cleaning the house, you know what I mean? So anyway, food for thought. It's kind of a neat thing to see what they're doing. Temperature. Now, this is an interesting thing. We kind of talk a little bit about fall going into spring, but temperature inside the hive from now until fall, okay, is going to be at 93 degrees. Why is that? Science has proven brood will not start to to survive until it's typically 92 to 93 degrees. Anything below that, she'll lay the eggs. They're not going to be able to survive that. So inside that hive right now, I guarantee your hives, if you have bees, they're brewing up, it's been warm enough, they're brewing up. If you were to measure the temperature inside there, it's at least 93 degrees. And they'll pretty much regulate that. Sometimes in the peak of the summer, they'll get up as high about 95, 98 degrees. But that's pretty consistent from this point on until fall. So, they will continue to maintain that, just pretty much talked about that. They're going to consume their food in order to do such a thing, either heat it or cool it. This time of year, you know, we still have some colder nights and mornings. So these temperatures are still kind of fluctuating a little bit. So they're doing double duty and they're tasked more because there's less bees. They only came out with that winter hatch. And, you know, you now had maybe the first hatch that has hatched, but it's a small colony right now. It's kind of like you're starting over with a newt and they're trying to catch back up. And so they're consuming a lot of food to end up keeping the temperature at the proper temperature in order for the brood to survive. Hence, if you're running double deeps and not just a single deep, when you're doing your inspection, right now, majority of your hives, where are your bees at? That upper thing, because the heat rises, it's easier for them to maintain that heat and take advantage of that heat and not so much down at the bottom root chamber. Make sense? So as long as there's natural food resources, they're going to go and hit those, bring them back. But typically, we're going to have to supplement all that sort of stuff. And they're going to bring that in again, start using it. I already talked about all that. Late in the fall, what had happened, okay, the ambient temperature starts to drop. And so that colony will still maintain that 92, 93 degrees, even though the ambient temperature has severely started to drop. They will maintain that as long as they can. And that really just depends on the colony strength going into winter, how well we prepare that colony to overwinter. But at some point in time, they're going to have to know that they cannot maintain that. And so the internal temperature is going to drop below that 92 to 93. And what happens is it basically causes the brood to break. And so from that point on until fall, you're not going to see any more brood. They'll basically go broodless. Yeah. The winter colony, that's what's going to survive until you go into spring. And that's where we're hoping, when we teach you guys all that in the fall, we want to build that colony up so that there's roughly 80 to 100 pounds of honey and make that as many bees as we can to try. Because we know at least half of those bees are going to die between the end of November all the way till March when they start coming out and doing up. So anyway, the bees have to cluster in order to stay warm. Anytime that's going to really, the 45 degrees is going to really make them cluster. 45 ambient outside temperature. Right? So what are they doing when they cluster? Well, they are trying to maintain that clustering is at 70 degrees for their survival. And the reason how they do that is thermogenesis. Because basically they're shivering. So you'll hear Jason calls them the heater bees. A lot of them will go inside head first into the cell, and they sit there and they shake, and while they're shaking, they're creating heat, and they'll use their wings to kind of move that heat around. And they'll come out and join the cluster, and then the new ones come in, and so they're kind of doing this rotation constantly, and that cluster will just slowly move around, consuming the food resources in order for them constantly be shivering. So that's why you need so much food in there. All right. So what has happened, especially like this year? Well, we had a lot of temperatures where all of a sudden we were under 45 But then next day we were at 55, and then we're at 30, and then now next day we're at 60. I mean, it was just like no given, right? So those bees cannot stay consistently under 45 in a cluster. In an ideal world, that's really what we want them to do during the winter. Given like what happened this year, they're constantly doing that. So when they break cluster, they're gonna go and forage. There's nothing to forage on through the winter. So hopefully you guys didn't have too many losses, but I'm sure whatever food resources you had, they really chewed up a lot of that. Is that pretty consistent with anyone that's done their hives so far or inspected hives? And so that's the reason why you didn't have as much honey this year as you will winter as maybe in the years past. Okay. Again, the ideal thing, once it drops below 45, which here in the valley on the floor is pretty consistent. It's just we have some of these years that, like last year, where it breaks a little bit. And then that's where we want them to be, you know, hopefully it falls good. But anything that goes above that, they're gonna consume more and more food. Just some basic tips as you're doing your hive inspections here. Theory, let the bees be bees. We all want to get into our bees. We want to see them, especially when they're brand new. We want to check them out. There are times you want to get into your bees, maybe once a week, but I would do that no more than 7 days. Really to keep that 7 days or longer. The more you're in your bees, whether it's a nuke or a big, the more you're setting them back. You're gonna always send them back every time you're in there. Disrupted their natural behavior. You're gonna send them back at least a day, if not two, occasionally 3. So the better thing to do is let the bees be bees. You want to watch them, pull up your lawn chair, watch the front entrance, and enjoy doing it that way. All right. There are reasons you have to get in. I would conduct your inspections, in my opinion, 2 to 3 weeks. If you're doing it 3 weeks, you're catching every single hatch, right? 21 days is how long the worker bee is hatching out. So you're gonna see that rotation of that hatch every 3 weeks. And it allows them to do everything else they need to do to continue to grow. You're not disturbing them that much. And you're gonna see your colony just boom, do really, really well if we do it that way. On top of that, if there's trouble, that gives them time without being disturbed to fix that trouble. Maybe it's disease, maybe it's just bad comb, you know, broken comb, things that need to be drawn out, whatever it may be. They're gonna fix all those things on their own. But if you're in there at least, you know, maybe 2 weeks, that's fine as well. But not do it every other day, every third day, every fourth day. That's just way too much for that, okay? So if you go beyond 3 weeks, you're in that 4th week. Now you missed a cycle. But here's the problem is that the longer you go, now you don't know what's going on in there, okay? And as Jason claims, you know, his little term is you're no longer beekeepers, you're bee havers. Because you're just depending solely on those bees. But if there is problems, you know, you're gonna miss the opportunity to potentially fix that. And now it's gonna take much more time to help them and fix whatever is a problem. So I want to go more than 4 weeks. So I know this is fall here, basically, I just gonna go in the spring here a bit, but just letting you know what happened through the fall, why we're into where we're at now. What happened? Colony again went into its winter preparations. The bee population decreased, right? At least half. That's pretty typical. All drones, they perished. One way or another, they died off, all right? And then you probably saw during the winter or right when you started doing your spring inspections, more dead bees than normal out in front. Again, don't be alarmed by that. That's all normal. Okay, it's okay for that. And that was cleaning house and then drawing out the dead bees and all that. Okay, so going into spring. Now, again, this says March. Again, a lot of this started already in February. We're a little bit behind. So Don't follow just this little March, April, May thing here, kind of understand what's happened. So again, we are now warm enough, to where brood cycle is going, so 93 degrees internally or more. And she's laying her hatch. It's gonna take 21 days, so 3 weeks. So that hatch emerges and comes out, and then she will use those bees to warm up the next hatch, and that's how it slowly grows, slowly grows, slowly grows. The advantage from this way versus the new is everything's already drawn, food resources are in there, they're going to work, and so they grow so much more rapid versus a nuke. You have a question?
Are you gonna put it up, but then I want to get technically.
Yeah.
Are you gonna kind of talk about, okay, right now, you might be wanting to.
Yep, you're gonna see that, and then whatever I don't get, Tracy's gonna fill in on that. You're absolutely, yep, and good. So, let's see here. Typically, your nectar, so pollen's already out. Yeah, I'm sure everyone has been seeing the pollen, different colors of pollen. But typically that nectar is gonna come in about 30 days after the pollen. So about any time now, actually your ground cover, if there's nectar, if there's anything flowering or budding, they're gonna start getting some natural nectar coming in on that. You won't see a wet frame, but you'll see them being able to come in and use those resources to help start feeding the eggs and the larvae. But it's minimal right now, the nectar, right? So going to your question there, yes, you should be feeding. And yes, that's 1-to-1 now, okay? Do your 1-to-1. If you're warm enough, they don't need the thicker 2-to-1. It's gonna be easier for them to digest and the way they're gonna go. And then if you have undrawn frames, you might do 1 at a time, like maybe either frame 2 or 8, not 1 or 10, because those are the wall frames. And then that will help start drawing that out as they get extra nectar, okay? Especially if you have the 1-to-1, they can start catching up. But again, you gotta remember, 1 to 2 cycles at least of that hatch before that colony starts to grow, and you really see those resources being produced at a fast pace. So right now, they're just trying to catch up coming out of winter. Their hive inspections, again, we're well beyond the 50, so we're good with that. I still would be cautious about how long you're in that hive, even though we're hitting those warmer days, because we still have some cooler nights, and they just drop real quick. So be in there. It can take a little bit more time than just the quick 5 minutes, but I want to make it a 30-minute inspection anyway. So we're still not quite that warm. Remember, the more that brood is exposed, and it drops below the 93, anything that's on that brood frame or the eggs or the larvae that's on that, but now it cool off below 93, basically you just lost that whole frame, whatever it was, whatever growth it was. If it was an egg, if it was a larvae, if it was a capped, consider that lost. They're all perished because they got exposed to the below 93. Does that make sense? Right? So that's why I say, don't stay in your hive forever. And then the other thing is, when you do see a brood frame, don't put that on the outside, where you need more room. You're taking out your honey and your pollen frames, and we're putting those on the side so you have room to work together. As soon as you see the brood, keep the brood in the box. Give it every chance you can to keep that 93-degree temperature. All right. So again, not until about 1 or 2 cycles till you start seeing the pollen start to grow. And then all of a sudden, you're going to see a lot of wax production. You're going to start seeing more pollen being stored, nectar, things like that. Take a frame count, and you can do this in different ways. But you don't want to be fooled by opening the top of your hive and just looking at all these bees from the very top, because that is deceiving. They're all up there at the top, especially right now. So if nothing else, you take that box, you lift it up and you're gonna look underneath of that. This is the lazy man way to do it, and you're gonna count those frames. So, are the frames in here?
Yes, they are. Two of the boxes have frames in it, one of them.
So hopefully you can see this, especially in the back row. If this is the top box, I'm gonna lift this up. I'm gonna look underneath here and see where my bees are, not just up here. You lift that up and I'm looking to see, is this side and this side covered with bees? It doesn't have to be like, massive amount. If there are bees consistently on both sides, that's one frame. Okay, so that's a frame count. If it's just on half, I wouldn't count that yet, because they're only working half the frame. You want to see exactly where they're at of frame counts, okay? So you can kind of do it this way here. The best and more accurate way, if you can, again, it depends on weather and your time, but it's go one by one, okay? Oh, that's honey. Oh, that's pollen. Okay, brood, I got one. I got brood. Got half a brood. So I got 2.5 frames. And then the rest are not working yet. I'm gonna make a note of them right now. Okay, 2.5 is probably fairly normal at this time of year. Might be into 3, unless you got a gangbuster. I've got one that's already got 6 frames wall to wall. So yeah, it's just, it happens once in a while. Not all of them, but anyway. So you're gonna keep that count. So that way, when your next inspection you go, you're gonna look at this here and see, hey, I had 2.5 last time. Where am I at now? Am I at 3.5, 4.5, or whatever? Also, am I at 1? Why am I at 1? You're going backwards. They should be growing, right? That's really what you want to be doing. Take a frame count, not of just brood, but see, hey, how much pollen do I have? How much honey do I have? You kind of keep track of that as well.
So we had a question on Zoom about unwrapping hives.
I would unwrap, in my opinion, I'd already have that unwrapped now. You're gonna maintain that colony to be too hot, too quick. You're not letting enough vent go on. And then, can I share what you're sharing with me? So Sarah likes to wrap, but she took hers off. And part of the reason that is she noticed, she also ran a quilt box, but she had a ton of mold growing. And mold will be normal. The bees will usually take care of that 90% on their own. But what was happening was there was too much moisture, too much condensation in there, not enough airflow, not enough vent. And so by taking off the wrap, she actually took off her quilt box. She got more air in there. And then my understanding, the hive's doing much better. Okay. Hopefully that answers the question for the Zoom. If not, let's see here. As you're doing your inspections, look to see and be honest with yourself. This colony isn't doing real well. Maybe I need to go ahead and bring it back down to a single for a month. You're actually going to make that colony stronger if you do that. If you keep it double, it's too much room for that little bit of bees to keep warm. So they're working too hard. If you take half of the house away, now you only have to keep, 1,000 square feet rather than 2,000 square feet. It's easy for them. That brood will stay warmer, they'll grow faster, and then you get that second box back on in about another month. Make sense? So it's okay to drop back down to a single. They need to be done. When you're doing inspections, now's the perfect time. You want to go ahead and take those down, clean off that bottom board, but put them back the same way. Bottom back, the box back on the bottom, top back, box back on top. If you're doing oxalic sponges, go ahead and change those out now. If you haven't already, that's the perfect time to go ahead and do that. But don't be alarmed, that bottom box, there's not much activity going on at all. That's pretty normal, okay? You're going to hear about, might be in the next slide, about rotating boxes. I still want to do that. You can do whatever you want. I'm not here to tell you you have to do this. don't do that. You're the beekeeper, you make those decisions on your own. I'm just trying to give you as much tools and knowledge for you to make the choices that you want to make. My recommendation is not to, if you do rotate them, don't rotate them yet. Because that upper box, if they're just not strong enough, they're not growing yet. If you've got one of those gangbusters that's 5, 6, 7 frames already brewed, and that queen is just knocking it out of the park, yeah, go ahead and switch it or draw another frame down here. The purpose of rotating them is to get the queen to lay in both boxes again. All right, so that's what we're trying to do.
Can you suggest waiting an extra 30 days,
Say again.
an extra 30 days to switch them?
So the question is, well, I recommend another 30 days before switching. I would, yeah, keep watching them in your hive inspections, and it's really gonna depend on the colony. Just how much is it growing? So how many brood frames do I have? Similar like, when you watch it grow from a nuke, you know what I mean? You say, okay, it's time to rotate them. But when you rotate them, I would still bring, an open brood frame from that bottom, put it in the center of the top, just like you were on a brand new hive, okay? Because what's gonna happen, it's gonna force the worker bees to work that frame, keep it warm, and the queen's gonna recognize, oh, I got bees on both sides here, so she's gonna start going back up to the top and even the coupling as well. So, yeah, but within 30 days, probably within about 2 to 3 weeks, you're probably gonna be rotating them, if that's your method. Yeah, some people don't even rotate them, you just let them do their thing, and there's nothing wrong with that as well. Is that with swarming? Oh, it won't really stop them from swarming, no. It may slow them down a little bit, because now they recognize, well, I got more room, you know what I mean? But this is usually done before the swarm season hits, yeah, it's just to kind of get that colony back at full strength as quick as we can make. Does that make sense? Okay, so I know we're getting that short of time here. Talk about first, second, third hatches there. So don't be surprised, you may see some drones like that one I was telling you that I've got so many hives or so many frames. I've got a bunch of drones already coming out. So they're ready to go. But yeah, I've got some that are only like 2 and 3 frames of brood, and there's no drones going, so they're just a little bit slower behind. So start watching that, start watching queen cells, because once the drones come and they're consistent, right behind that is when swarm season is going to start. Okay, because again, what's the purpose of the drone? To mate, right? So they needed the drones in there, and they know they're ready to go and move on. So it's going to be a 1-2 thing. Few weeks, once you start seeing those drones, 2 to 3 weeks, queen cells are going to show up, and then it'll be swarm season. I anticipate an early swarm season. Okay, again, as you go into your next spring, not so much just April, whatever you're doing your hive inspections, keep a frame count, that's gonna help you. But the other thing is later on in the month, especially as you go into April, really start paying attention if they're going backwards, and you wanna ask yourself why. One big thing you wanna look at, and it's normal right now, you're gonna start seeing bee feces everywhere, right? There's poop just flying, right? Literally. And so they're cleansing. These are cleansing flights. They have been eating their honey all winter long. That does some digestive issues for them, and they've got to cleanse that out, right? But what happens if they can't get good gut health is nosema, and it's very common. And so if you start, the cleansing flights will go on for about 2 to 3 weeks, and then you should stop seeing all the bee poop everywhere, right? But if you're seeing excessive feces and going on, find out why, and it's probably nosema more often than not. So that's a telltale sign. Other things you can look at, these are just some of them. If you're starting to see black bees, so there's no orange to them, there's no hair to them. Paralysis. If you're seeing a bunch of dead bees, you got probably exposed to an early pesticide, exposure. If they're aggressive, again, queenless, it's gonna be common right now. You have an older queen, she didn't make it, or she just started to make it, or those bees felt like we should have been ahead, and they went ahead and tried to supersede her. Queenless hives. Man, I just had a queen hive last week and now it's queenless. This is pretty common in the spring. All these things are pretty common in the spring. Foul smell, not too common, but if you see that, it's probably a foul brood in there, and you can treat that. Help those things. So again, get an IPM program, whatever that is for you, get it going and keep your mite count down, and you want that down from through the rest of the season. All right. Again, keep feeding. You're gonna want to keep feeding until there's a steady amount of natural nectar coming in, and then they'll disregard your feeding. You won't need to feed that until the dearth comes in or the wildfires, because then nothing's going on. You're gonna need to feed again. So I anticipate a lot of that happening this year. I mean, we're in a major drought. You know, we're gonna have a lot of forest fires, so anticipate feeding bees. Okay, so we talked about rotating the hives.
Now, are you saying that when the forest,
That's, what's that?
are you saying that when forest fires, that are you offline or it's
So when the valley is filled with smoke, that's hard on your lungs, hard on their lungs. On top of that, it's hard on all four. So the floral is gonna slow way down, if not shut off as well. Okay, so yeah, the peach tree is still growing, but it's not producing or none of this. So the peach tree, but you see what I'm saying? It's not helping the bees. There's nothing for them to really. It's minimal for pitch, right? So was there another question back then? All right, so again, coming into May, it's gonna be just the same rinse and repeat, same cycle. It's just they're getting bigger, bigger, bigger. So you're gonna get roughly about that peak, 60,000 bees, somewhere in back. It probably won't be May. I'd imagine it'll probably be toward the end of April, beginning of May. And then, all of a sudden, Doug's gonna be calling you, hey, you ready to go get bees out of the tree? So, be prepared for that. And I'm sure, by the next segue, next month or whatnot, we're talking about splits and getting ready to try and avoid the swarms, doing artificial swarms through your splits. So.
So we have a question on,
Yep.
when would you set out a swarm trap?
You could set a swarm trap now if you wanted. It probably isn't gonna do much good at the moment, but drones are coming in, so sooner you have it out there, then the better. Go ahead and figure out where you want that. We talked about this at the Veterans Club. Basically, the training I was taught, and I've done swarm trap, I've never caught my own swarms on those. But they say ideally about 5 to 8 feet is the ideal thing. So, 8 feet, most of us had to have some type of ladder. Kind of awkward working boxes on a high ladder or whatever. So figure out what you want to do, 5, 6 feet. Is kind of where you want to set that. And you can set them up in a 5-frame newt if it's easier to do it that way. The ideal setup is if you run in 8 frames or 10 frames, run a full box. But try and get older comb that has the old pheromones in there. You want to throw as much pheromone in there as you can. And another trick to use is doing some yes, thank you. And so put that like on a cotton ball, you put that right at the back of the hive, and that will help draw them into your dome. So what you're looking for is that lonely scout bee that's doing her job, trying to figure out where the resources are. And she comes across this pheromone thing, she hones in and she checks it out. And it's like, hey, man, we can be squatters. We're going to move right here. She goes back to the hive and away they go. Boom. you know, that, again, there's different theories on that, different science. You were just talking about that, yeah, you thought it was roughly 300 feet. I believe, you know, I meant to pull up the article on my training course, I just had to, but you don't want it right there. They're naturally gonna go probably at least 100 to 100 feet from where they're already at. Okay, and they might even go maybe 20, 25 feet, but that would be extremely temporary. Probably enough for them to make their ball and then boom, they're off again. You know what I mean? So somewhere's in there, if Peter already has that set up or something like that.
I would say go as far as you can, but they will go closer, cause my second year, I had a swarm. And they literally, I had a box that I had set just up to the side, I was gonna go set it someplace else. And 20 minutes later, I'm like, what the heck is going on out here? I hear that, I go running around thinking they're all over and they were going in the box. You wanna see a video, let me know, I got it on my phone.
And it's, you'll hear it. It is, wow. Yes, lemongrass, yep. Yep, lemongrass soil, yep, as natural as you can get it. Good question, anything else on that? Same. A couple of ways to slow them down as it begins, okay, as swarm season begins. And really, they need room. That's why they want to swarm, right? So give them room. And you gotta be on top of that. If they've already started the process and then you give them room, they're probably still gonna lose them. Because they've already started that process. So we've got to give them the room before they're laying the queen cells and all that sort of stuff ready to go. That's the ideal situation, all right? Sometimes we're just not lucky to catch that, and then we see the clue with the peanut cell of the queen cell. You can gut super, that's just putting an empty in between them. So you have the two boxes, open it up right in the middle, and you put another empty, and they'll be like, what in the heck just happened here? And they'll fix it all up or draw it out or whatever else, but it slows them down. It's gonna buy some time until you can get to do what you need to do. That's a good way to do that. So the bottom line is that's the way bees were created. The natural tendency is to swarm, always want to grow, and it's the survival of the colony. So we want to split them. We create an artificial swarm by splitting them and do it that way. That's the best way to control it in the real world. Anyway, any questions about that? Any questions at all? And I went along, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Carol. We're really gonna go over something that's very time specific to right now, and that is feeding. We're gonna go over a few different parts of feeding, but it's gonna be mainly around what you do be doing right now. Different kinds of feeders, different methods of feeding. The first one I'm gonna talk about, and just very briefly, because we're not doing it, we're a little late, is dry feeding. Putting a fondant board on, or just putting granulated sugar. You can do that when you're afraid it's gonna freeze. You're not worried about it freezing, shouldn't be feeding dry sugar. If you're going to feed dry sugar, this is how you do it. Inner cover, empty box. Take 5 pounds of sugar, pour it around the outside, not the middle, around the outside. They'll come up through the center hole and eat it if they need to. You keep the wasps out. Telescoping cover goes over the top of that. That's that's a very cheap way of dry feeding. Next, where we just came out of the phase, he was talking about we need to be doing 1-to-1, is 2-to-1, 2 part sugar to 1 part water. And you want to do that when they need some help. You're not so worried about it freezing or getting too cold, but you're not trying to stimulate them yet. You're just trying to get them some food because they're hungry. So that's when you would use 2 parts sugar for 1 part water, okay? Now, this time of the year, here in the valley, it's warm enough, we want to stimulate them. How you do that, what stimulates the queen to grow is a nectar flow. Okay? 1-to-1 sugar water, and anything less than that, 1 part sugar to 1 part water. The hive thinks it's a honey flow, it's a nectar flow. And so the queen will ramp up and start laying, okay? Now, one of the age-old questions that I've heard 100 times is, well, is that 1-to-1 by weight or by volume? The technical answer, chemistry answer is by weight. The practical answer is by volume. They're so close together, we're not worried about 0.5% of sugar water. It's not a big deal. It's easier. Use a gallon, like a gallon pitcher, 1 gallon of sugar, 1 gallon of water. Just that easy. Makes you 1-to-1. Now, in doing that, you're having a little bit less sugar than you are water. Because bees have this sense as to how much sugar is in that water. If there's more than 50% sugar in that water, they don't see it as nectar. It is food and they will eat it. No question of that. They'll eat it right down, but they don't see it as nectar. And this time of year, you're trying to simulate a nectar flow. Okay, so that's why we want to go 1-to-1. You can even go a little bit less sugar than that if you would like. But you're already a little bit less than 50-50 because the water weighs more than the sugar. So that gives you a little bit of wiggle room there so that you're under that 50%. So 1-to-1 this time of year. Once you start feeding them, you cannot stop feeding them until there's nectar. Okay? Once the nectar's out there and they're leaving your feeder alone, then you can take it off. This time of year, in a couple of weeks, when the nectar starts flowing, the nectar might flow for a couple of days, and then the temperature drops to 50 degrees for a couple of days. Leave your feeder on there because they'll eat out of your feeder while they can't go out, and it won't slow the progress down of the hive. So once they are not eating out of your feeder, then you can take it off. Every day, it's warm enough for them to get out. Every day they can go get nectar. You'll know because they'll stop eating. It'll just stay there. And it'll probably stay there long enough, depending on how often you go in, you'll see a little bit of mold in there. Or the water will evaporate out and it'll get real thick. One of the two. This time of year, it's a good idea to put a tablespoon of vinegar in your 1-to-1 sugar water. That will help it from molding. So you don't have to worry about it going bad. I've had some people swear that the bees like it better. I don't know. It definitely doesn't hurt to do that. You can also use feeding supplements. I don't know how many of you do Honeybee Healthy or Super DFM. You can do all those in your 1-to-1 sugar water also. But it's imperative that you feed them until there's nectar. Because you're going to feed them, they're going to ramp up and make a bunch of brood, and then you not feed them and there's no nectar out there. Well, then you just made a big hungry hive. Now they have twice as many mouths to feed, and there's nothing out there. So feed. I've always used white because it's not doesn't have active mother in it. But I've always used white when I've done it. Any questions about the actual feed? Oh. Lady in the back here has pollen patties, and you can put pollen patties on this time of year also. If you mind if I bring one of those up here and show it to everybody? This is a pollen patty, and I have never had much problems with enough pollen. Never have. Some people put them on every year. I've never really ever used them. But you just place it on top like this. You can cut it in half if you'd like. And they'll eat this pollen. And it's a pollen substitute. It has 15% pollen in it. But it also has other protein that they can use. You don't want to put pollen patties on until you're ready to stimulate them for the spring, to get them to start laying. You don't want to put pollen patties on in December and January, most of the time, not even in February. But we're just so warm this time of year that you can put pollen patties on now. If you guys want to look at this, I'm gonna pass it around. No, you leave it just like that, yeah, because it dries out too quick if you pull the paper off of it. So
I
everybody
just
just,
bet a quarter of one of those. Top board,
yeah,
it's like a half a cup of sugar,
okay,
and they're hardly even touching them all now. They're bombing in there right now, loaded with pollen.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and they're hardly working the sugar.
Yeah, and the pollen patty is the same as the sugar, is that if there's a lot of natural pollen out there, they're not gonna touch your pollen patty. They like the natural stuff.
My apricot trees already got blue.
Yeah,
Trees already got blue.
awesome. Just like your sugar, if there's nectar out there, they're not gonna touch your sugar. That's their natural food. Now, that's what different kinds of feed that you give. Now, there's different kinds of feeders. And I'll give you the ones that I like, don't like. The first one is called a Boardman feeder. It sticks right in the front here, right on top of your entrance. I have never liked those feeders. They tend to get given out with kits because they're cheap. You can screw like a quart jar on them and they stick right in there. The reason why I don't like it is this time of year is when your hive is the weakest. So you put sugar water right here where yellow jackets can come in and it's right at the front. They can just kind of go around the corner and get it. And you can start a robbing situation. And you already have a weak hive that's having a hard time defending itself, and now you can put sugar right at the door to attract yellow jackets, wasps, those kinds of things. That's why I don't like that feeder.
Everything I've noticed right now, in Walmart, they have a wasp, yellow jacket, strip of like $2.50, like cardboard too.
Right?
I put one of them by each one of my hives,
Yeah.
and the bees don't go near them. You might get one bee on there, one pop.
Once in a while, yeah. If you have one of those feeders, if it came with your kit, if you happen to have, this is how I would do it. On top of your inner cover, set it right here. Do not set it over the hole. Set it with the opening towards the hole. And then cover it with a box like you did the sugar. So that now the wasps and everything can't get to it, but your bees can still get to it. If you have one of those feeders that come with your kit. No, this is too wide open, and you gotta remember too, right now, they're very, very small. They're too small to be worried about building it. The second kind is a pail feeder like this. I have used these in the past, I don't use them very much anymore. It's like any bucket going come apart. You fill it full of sugar water. You seal the lid on it. And you turn it over right over the inner hole there. And they can come up and feed. Not my favorite because it blocks the ventilation. However, I do know a lot of people that use it. You could put like two entrance reducers or shins or something to lift it up enough. You could do that. I've never done that. I always just set it on there like that. But there's only a little bit of room here for them to eat. That's one of the reasons why I don't like this feeder. But these are cheap and some people love them.
One of the things you gotta do is put your holes in the little center, but you wanna punch them from the outside in. So that way they will seal properly and not just run into your hive. If you punch holes through that lid from the inside out,
Yeah.
it'll be a spigot, it'll just rain on it.
Some people have a solid lid like this and they poke holes in it. What he's saying is don't poke them this way. Poke them from the outside because then you have that little lip sticking in and it helps it from draining out. I've never done that. I've always used something like this, but I know the people that use the mason jars with the metal, that's what you have to do. You have to poke it like that. Definitely.
The other thing right now, as the wasps are coming out, those are the queen wasps. So the more queens you can kill now, the less problem you have with the later in the season.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone you catch now is worth 10,000 in August. Definitely, definitely. When you're having weather that's up and down, like we're having right now, this is another option. It's called a frame feeder. Okay, it goes in place of a frame, or if you have mediums in the place of two frames, it sits in here like this. You can fill it up and that sugar water stays warm and they can feed on it. If you open feed and it gets cold at night, and that water gets really cold and you have to pull it in and out every night. This way, it's in the hive keeps it warm to a certain degree and they can eat. The downfall to these is you have to open the hive to fill them. Okay, these are not my favorite, but it's what Jason uses, and when bees go to California, they have to have these because that's just his system. So I don't mind them, but they're not my favorite. It's a really good option for times right now when it's getting hot and cold and hot and cold. With this feeder, no, this feeder has a hole at the top. And down in here, I don't know if I can get these out or.
The other frame, the other box, there.
Yes, they can, definitely. But see, this is full of sugar water, and see, this is so they don't drown. They can crawl down and crawl up and eat out of it. All of them have those in it. Yeah, that's one way to go. Now. That kind. Now to my favorite kind of feeder. Which I don't use because my bees come back from California and I'm trying to keep them from swarming. So you don't want to feed if you're trying to keep them swarming. Is this one, a top feeder? And this is my favorite kind of top feeder for this area because this is a plastic insert. It's not going to leak. At first I bought wooden ones this was all made of wood and it was cloth. Well, it sealed the first time and the wood soaked up all the moisture. Well, then when you got done feeding in middle of April or May and you put it aside, that was the heat, sun, it dried out and popped the caulk. Well, in the fall, you got to scrape all the caulk off, you got to recaulk it, and it works perfect for the fall. But then next spring, because it's wet and it got cold, it pops the caulk again. So I got tired of caulking them and I just went and bought these, but it's in plastic insert. It holds a lot. If you're going on vacation, it holds 2.5 gallons. So you can really fill it up if you want. The bees don't drown because this center is all screened. They can come up through the middle here. And stay within this screen. And a whole bunch of them can eat at one time. Hundreds and hundreds can eat at one time. So they can really pull down some sugar water out of this if they're hungry or if they're building comb, they will eat sugar water out of this gallons in a day. I've had them pull 2 gallons in one day. Now that was rare. That was an oddity, but it's common for them to pull a whole gallon in one day out of one of these feeders.
Can you leave that out?
Sure. I also have a bunch of these for sale. Got about 15 of them left. If anybody wants any. No, don't have anything for 8 frame. Almost nobody has anything for 8 frame. That's not used anyway. So this can also be used for 3-to-1 or 1-to-1. Another thing that it's good for is in the fall. You can put some 2-to-1 in here and let them build it, let them store it. Then you can take these and you can put old clothes in here, anything like that for insulation. If you wanted, you could cut the pink styrofoam and put them down in there. You could be as artistic as you want. I've stuffed them full of clothes before and left it on there like this for what is called a top hat. Even though it's a feeding, you're putting a lot of insulation in the attic, just like in your house, keeps it warmer down here. And because it's warmer on the bottom of the here, you don't get the condensation and the water as nearly as much. So that's why this has always been my favorite feeder, is a top feeder, but especially the ones with the plastic inserts. Especially the ones with plastic inserts. This time of year, feed until they don't want any more feed until it builds or turns thick. Keep feeding. Extremely important. And don't stop because you think they've had enough. Keep putting sugar in there, keep putting sugar water until they stop taking
The sugar water. You check it like every day.
You can if you want. The nice thing also about this feeder is the bees are screened down in the bottom. So you can go out there anytime and pull the top off and look and see how full it is. And you can fill it without the bees ever getting out. So it's not a big deal to go check it every other day or what, it's just that much easier. I would check it every 3-4 days. Any other questions? Anybody have any answers? Anything else about feeding? Because right now feeding is important.
Go ahead, I just.
Oh, about the nukes? Okay. No questions about feeding?
I have a comment that's interesting from observations this year. Even in January, when it's 45, I mean, bees don't come out until it's 50 or well, my bees fly when it's 45 sun. So I give them something to do, so I put out a bunch of pollen substitute. And they crate and put a big pile in there, and then at night I actually put a barrel over it or bucket over it where they can still get it. It's kind of a chop.
Right.
There. And they just love it. So I like to give my bees something. Then you could watch the entrance and see them coming in with all that pollen on it.
Yeah.
And it's good because it's nutrient and everything else. So January, they were all over it. I went on a trip for 3 weeks, so I left a big pile in there.
Yeah.
Got back. They hadn't touched it, but they're bringing in orange, light orange, and both like brown, grayish brown pollen. So my point is, I like to give my bees something to do, but when they have natural pollen, they won't go for that anymore. And what they're getting now, I mean, really, I don't know, but they're getting natural, when they're in there like crazy.
Right.
That also tells me, just from instead of inspecting, you watch your entrance, and if they're bringing pollen in, that means they got some, brood in there. And that's, they're getting ready to stock up, but that was really interesting. So when they don't need it, they won't use it.
Right. Right. Just a word of caution, feeding them pollen, substitute that early. You might want to watch the temperature to just make sure you're not stimulating them too early. That would be my only suggestion to you. With your bees, you can do with what you like. I would just be concerned with them starting to ramp up and it's still too cold.
Well, and I inspected 2 of my 4 that I have, and one had a lot of drone cells. And so that was a good sign, and the other one didn't have any drone cells, but a lot of camp brood, so. I don't know, I like to keep my stuff to do and stimulate some springs, but it's not.
Okay.
Going.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna turn it back over to Tyler. He's got a list here he needs to speak to you about, and then we're done.
I was just gonna say, I know some of you are looking for nukes, Jason sells nukes, and I know Doug's got some, I've got some, I've got a sign up list if you're interested as well. There might be others in the club, but anyway, that list is up here if you guys are interested about.
And are you the same time as Jason?
I'm sorry?
Are you the same page?
So yeah, for the most part, we do the same. I will have, last year was one of those years where because of the colony collapse across the country, you took whatever queen you could get. And so, but anyway, Jason was fortunate. He got a lot of the gold battalions. That's kind of switched over from the Sassy's to those. So a lot of those are going to be some, and my other mix was sorry. That's okay.
What about queens?
So Jason will have some queens. I don't know how much. I don't want to speak for him. I just know I'm just telling you what he's told me and what I know he's told others. How much he's going to have, I don't know yet.
It's a little early right now, but so.
Right. And then he and I are both determined. We both have played around grafting. He's probably had a little more success than I have, but anyway, we will be grafting our own queens. So our goal, both of us talking about that, is to really graft our own queens from our own stock that are doing well here in the valley. So,
Well, I thought about grafting, but I have 5 colonies. I don't a whole bunch of queens.
right.
And yeah, maybe it could sell some, but I don't know how if you have 20 queens and you have all in a queen box, how long will they last?
Well, he'll have a queen bank. Last, the right conditions with that, they'll last quite a long time, so. But eventually, as they sell, or I mean, yeah, they sell out, or they age, too much, we gotta get new queens in, so a rotation.
Yes, but I don't think we have a date for that yet.
Yeah, so again, I talked to Jason earlier today. Don't hold it to firm date. But he's now thinking probably that last weekend of March, I think it's the 28th. So that could change tomorrow. That's what's going on. Talks to him today, that's what he's leaning towards, but that's not set in stone. Yeah,
We'll get it out there.
So Jason will be back Friday night. And then I would probably reach out to him starting Monday, but Monday, just so you know, he and I are gonna be staging fees all over the valley. Anyway, at least he'll be in town and coordinate when they get some wiggle room. He'll have boxes and frames.
But so, he had a sign-up sheet, right? It's good to see it.
He did have a sign up, and I don't know, I don't remember how much he's charging for boxes and frames. I mean, he did have a sign up for those. Yeah, you need them in time to send them a different. I get that. And that's why I say, reach out to them next week.
Yeah, we set up a swap meet at the same time. We do that every year since we've been doing the dipping, so. And then since, earlier they mentioned the membership directory. I forgot, there were some people that use the old link from the January meeting and they're not on the updated one, so I went through it earlier this week, got it out and emailed it to everybody that's that was currently on it. So if you want to be on the membership list, and you think you've signed up, but you did not get an email with the spreadsheet, jump back into the new link and get on the list, because you probably signed up on the old one. There were several people that were on the old one. And I so we have everything in one spot, I need all done on the same form, so it goes into the same thing, and then I will get it redone, and I'm planning on updating it as more and more people sign up for it. I plan on updating that once a month, maybe twice a month, depending on how many people sign up.
Are you selling those pollen patties, or, lady in the back there's got pollen patties if you want to buy some from her, she got shipped extra or something, so you open that up to club members. Any other questions?
I have a keeper's hive. If anyone's doing a keeper's hive, was kind of new a year ago. I have one that I used for 1 year that I'm going to sell.
The swap meet.
But
When we do the dipping, bring it then. That's why I'm gonna bring the rest of whatever I have left. That's when I'll have these feeders there. These feeders are like $44 online. Most of these were used 1 year or no years, and they'll all have them there for $15.
yeah, so yeah, I gotta think about all of it there.
Okay,
About a feeder like that sooner than.
if you'd like, you can give me a call. I live in Delta. I do come to Grand Junction quite often, and I can deliver, or you can come to Delta and get them if you want. I'll make sure you have it. Make sure you have it before you leave today. I think I have some cards, but no,
I'll buy that one first.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, everybody. Thank you.